everybody, welcome to Elder Geek's Elder Speak. My name is Randy Asenchuk. I'm the editor of ElderGeek.com. Tonight with me, I have two very special guests. Steve is back. I should be looking over at this screen. All the way up on the top is Steve, who used to do Game Club with me, and someday soon, hopefully, we're going to be doing Game Club again, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we got to get it back. We've been dragging our feet a little bit on doing a Metal Gear Revengeance episode, and
yeah.
But yeah, it's in the future. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It'll happen. And then just below him and just above me is Lorne or Oda or however we're gonna call him probably about 5 or 6 different things tonight. But welcome to the show,
that's
bud.
Totally fine.
Tonight.
For those who aren't familiar, I'm with Channel Awesome, and I'm an MMO reviewer.
That's right. That's right. Which is what our topic is going to be about tonight. We're going to be talking about what needs to happen to make MMOs better. It's a topic that's been kind of coming up a lot on the internet, and I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. But before I get too far into this, I want to tell everybody to go and check out the video that was posted just the other day by Saber from the Frag Dolls, where we were over at MagFest and we were all playing Last Night on Earth. It turned out to be an awesome video. You get to see me being a goof, and anyway, go and do that. But anyway, let's start at the top. Let's start with Steve, and we'll work our way down. And I guess we could just talk real quick about what MMOs we've played or what MMOs we've been in, and probably like guess what our favorites were, and then we'll go into like what what we think needs to be done from here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I mean, this is going to sound cliche, but the MMO I've played the most of over the last decade has definitely been World of Warcraft. I couldn't even, I would hate to even tell you how many hours I put on that game. So, but aside from that, I've also played tons of, just about everything that's come out. I played Ion, Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14, both Guild Wars. I'm just kind of looking over at my shelf over here. Yeah, tons and tons of, what's the one? Rift. I played a lot of Rift for a while.
Really?
I've kind of run the gamut, but if I were going to say one that I played the most, it's obviously been World of Warcraft.
Would that one be your favorite too?
It's hard to say what the favorite would be. Obviously, I've had the most experience with that. I've made a lot of really good friends playing that over the years, so I would probably say that I don't know if it's because of the game itself, but just the experiences I've had have made it my favorite, I guess.
Okay. Nobu, how about you, man?
Well, obviously, I have to echo the same thing as Steve here. World of Warcraft was, it was actually, aside from the original Final Fantasy 11, World of Warcraft I think was like my first big, MMO that I really got into. I think actually World of Warcraft probably came before. Anyway, long story short, World of Warcraft, Aeon, Rift, both Guild Wars, both Final Fantasies. City of Heroes, City of Villains, DCU Online. I mean, over the course of my reviewing, and of course in my own personal, anything that's pretty much made the news, I've at least put in a few hours.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, on my desktop right now, it's like Neverwinter, Neverwinter Online, SWTOR, my desktop is filled with MMO icons, so. If there's a topic I could talk about, it's MMOs, but perhaps that might be a bit of a shame. But
it's not a shame. This kind of came up last minute, and I was like, I got to get him on here, and it was a shot in the dark that you were free. So I'm glad you came on, dude.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
What about favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, if we put World of Warcraft aside, because I think as Steve and I both said, there's just. We have put so many hours into that game that if we don't say it's our favorite, we've kind of wasted our lives. Now, to that end, though, it would be my favorite. It would be my uncontested favorite. But SWTOR, Star Wars: The Old Republic, is right underneath it there.
Wow.
But the only thing, and that's actually a contested opinion because I really like SWTOR.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that it's done wrong, but there's also a lot of things that it's done right.
Okay.
But it just so happens that the things that EA has jammed into BioWare's throat to make SWTOR a bad game, they've done some pretty big things. So, the bad outweighs the good in this case.
Okay, all right. I'm sure everybody's always heard me like yammering on about it. I started off with Ultima Online, I was in EverQuest for a little bit. Did Dark Age of Camelot, all of its expansions, Shadowgate, City of Heroes, City of Villains. I never, ever, ever, ever have I ever touched World of Warcraft. But I've done Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the original, Star Wars Galaxies. I did Star Wars the Old Republic once it went free to play. Final Fantasy, both Final Fantasies. Let's see. I did Age of Conan. I did a bunch. But out of all of them, I think that my first is probably still my favorite. I think that Ultima Online is still my favorite. And then I think as a second favorite, I would have to say that Dark Age of Camelot was quickly my second favorite, because I think out of all the MMOs out there, I think that one really nailed the PvP world. But yeah, so I'm sure that a lot of my opinions that I'm going to be spouting out tonight are going to be like, back in my day, when MMOs only cost a nickel. You know, I'm sure a lot of my stuff is going to end up sounding like that.
Back in my day, we only had text for our interface, and we liked it.
Yeah, exactly. We only had everything was
muds.
sprite based. Nothing, none of these voxels or these polygons.
Your newfangled polygons and your octagons and your rendering. Anyway,
well, you know what, Lorne, let's start with you, man. What would you do to fix MMOs? Like, if you think that there is a problem with MMOs, what would be like one of your big fixes that you would toss out there?
I think now, of course, I have two bits here. One is an extreme, and the other is an extreme the other way. The most extreme problem that I see is game companies, and this is going to initially sound horrible, but hear me out here. Game companies, or more specifically one, Blizzard. Sorry. Sorry, I had a little something on my throat there. Certain game companies listen too much to their fans. Now, the reason I say that is because World of Warcraft, they actually just published a bunch of stats just late last week, where they have now surpassed 100 million different separate accounts that have come through World of Warcraft.
Wow.
Which, now let's be honest, I've had like 5 accounts, you know, other people have had multiple accounts. So let's just say 80 million people have gone through World of Warcraft, and every single one of those people has had an opinion. So let's say even 20 million people have expressed that opinion. And that's 20 million voices, all shouting into the void, trying to be heard, trying to improve their game. And for as much as most veteran players of World of Warcraft will note that Blizzard tends to bend to the vocal, loud majority in their games. And so you get changes happen to the game, class changes or world changes or event changes that are garbage to the majority of the player base, but because the vocal minority spoke up, they got the change. And so thus everyone feels they have to be vocal, and thus the whole community is just absolute garbage. Like, it's just a bunch of people screaming and insulting each other and trolling each other, and Steve is laughing and nodding because he knows this. Now, on the other end of the spectrum are game companies who just utterly don't listen. Like, they just, yeah, they could care less, and they're like, oh, our big parent company says we need to make more money. Cram in some more, you know, pay-to-win content and disguise it as cosmetic or something, blah, 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 and then they make their money. So I would say the biggest problem in MMOs right now is being too malleable or being too apathetic, like being in an extreme in the development. If there's an extreme in the development and that company is abiding by the extreme, I MMO is in trouble.
I didn't realize that was an issue that Blizzard had, to be honest with you, that they were listening to their vocal, you know, to their squeaky wheels, so to speak. I mean, because I have not been in WoW at all, like I said, so I wouldn't know. Huh.
Well, Steve could probably tell you a few examples, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, you know, as I was kind of putting together some thoughts for this, I feel like over the years, and I'm just going to use WoW as the example. I think another big problem we could probably do an entire show on is a lot of the newer MMOs that have come out over the last 6 years or so. A lot of developers chasing Blizzard's success. You know what I mean? And as a result, a lot of the same issues that are found in those games you can kind of trace back to WoW because they were kind of using that as their boilerplate. So I guess what I would say is, I think a lot of the people who have complained about stuff and a lot of those changes that you were talking about, Oda, I feel like a lot of things, like I feel like a lot of what used to make MMOs great about being immersed in this world and having this social experience and kind of just getting lost in this world has been kind of, you can boil it down to the fact that most of it has now been streamlined into user interface or menus. Like, you know, like an example would be like, you used to use, if you wanted to get a dungeon group together, you know, you would sit in the chat channel and you would get a bunch of people together. You get some people from your guild, you know, you'd make friends on your server and your community, and it would build kind of this, you'd build a reputation and make all these connections to, you know, if you wanted to get dungeon groups together, that's just what you had to do. And, you know, it took a while. It wasn't convenient. I mean, it wasn't super accessible to people who just wanted to like pop in for 15 minutes and run a dungeon and get some valor points and then log out again. You know, it was, you had to put some effort into it. But I felt like the payoff and those relationships and those connections that you made is kind of what made it special. And when they took that away and they created this looking for dungeon interface where you just click ready and it pops you in, and, you know, 3 seconds later you're in with 4 strangers and they're cursing at you and acting like, you know, just acting like jerks.
Acting like they're never going to see you again, because they never are going to see you again.
There's no accountability, you know, and especially once it went cross-realm, you know, and
yeah,
that was to appease people who were on realms that had lower populations and had an even harder time finding dungeons, so they started kind of lumping them together. So you would get people from other realms, you had no idea who it was you were playing with, and just stuff like that. That's one example to that point that I can think of. But just taking things that used to be special about being in this like world, you know, and just streamlining them down into a menu, and you just open the menu and.
You know, I think you're absolutely right. It used to be, even before it was dungeons, where you would, you know, arrange people to go into it. In the older ones, in like Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot, the dungeons were physical places. Like, you would go into them, and sure, you could go in with friends and meet them inside, but more often than not, you were going in to just kind of explore. There was never a story to say, hey, go into that dungeon to go kill the final boss at the end of it, to like come back here and then, you know, hand in your mission. It was, there was a dungeon. Hey, I'm gonna go in and see how big the level of the mobs are inside, because the enemies in the dungeons oftentimes dropped better loot than the stuff that was outside. So you would go inside, and a lot of times you'd be overpowered, because even though you might be level 7 and the enemies might be level 7, they're harder than the level 7s that exist outside. So you would meet up with other level 7 people inside, and you'd make friends while you were there. It was part of the interaction. You teamed up, you know. And that's all kind of gone. And to go even like a step further, how you're saying like how they minimized everything to like just menus, I think like the concept of just fast traveling has just shot a whole lot of like what made MMOs so special, like right in the ass, you know? I guess, but I mean, think about it. There used to be a time when you had to explore, you had to know your way around, and you know, eventually you could fast travel if you were a high enough level. Like if you knew the magic spell or something along those lines to actually fast travel from one point to the other. But now you're just like, I don't want to be in this town anymore. I'm either going to find the 2 rift points and then go from one point to the next, or I'm going to pay the 60 gold to just instantly teleport over there. Sure, it saves time, but I feel like it takes a lot out of the game.
Well, see, I think that's something that World of Warcraft actually did right with their flight points. Because it's not an instantaneous thing. You know, you basically, you know, you click, oh, I want to go Sentinel Hill from Stormwind.
Right.
So you have to go to the flight master, you know, run through town, click the guide, click the point on the map, and then you fly for several minutes, you know, swooping around. And you can see players on the ground fighting things. You can see monsters rampaging around or whatever have you, and then you land, and you can go. It kind of opens the world up. It gives you an idea that you're in this massive environment where there's people living, breathing, fighting. And thankfully, Blizzard has never changed that. Sure, they have portals to like jump to major city, but if you're questing and stuff like that, you will see other people. But you know, the whole point, I think, in an MMO, and I think we can all kind of agree on this point, the whole point in an MMO is the world, the community, the people. And if you're playing a game and you remove the interaction with the looking for dungeon, looking for group, looking for raid, with the menu interfaces that let you skip talking to people,
Yeah.
I think you're missing out on the MMO, and I think you're removing part of the MMO from itself. I mean, if you're... My whole point in playing World of Warcraft was I had a lot of friends who played, and of course I was playing already. We played together. We had amazing times together. We have tons of experiences together. Most of my friends have moved on from WoW, so I don't play WoW as much, obviously. But that was the whole point. You had friends and community and a guild, and if you weren't in one, you weren't doing much. And I think this new focus on streamlining and, you know, dungeon groups or easy made dungeon groups, I think that's detracting from the MMO marketplace. And because WoW did it, everybody's doing it.
I think it detracts so much so that I would actually say that a lot of modern MMOs almost would act better as cooperative experiences instead of an MMO. Like, they almost might be better as like a 4 or 6 player co-op game, because if you're not really going to be doing anything with all these random people, then why are you playing with? Why do they need to be there at all in the first place?
Yeah, have it be more like Diablo.
Yeah, or Borderlands. I mean, Borderlands has so many MMO, things within it. It's not, and Diablo, same thing. The only thing that those games are missing is crafting. Really?
Diablo has crafting, but it's not really crafting. But yeah. It has crafting, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
but yeah, I mean...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, and with these new crops of MMOs coming, Destiny, things like that, where these, kind of MMO shooters, but they're still MMOs. Are they going to have it? I mean, from what we saw at E3 this last year,
yeah,
Destiny has this, like, auto sync up where, like, behind the scenes your party will be seamlessly merged with several other parties to complete world events, and it's like, I kind of dig that because it's behind the scenes and you're not clicking, you're not doing the menu, but along the same time there's no world at that point. It's just your group being thrown in with another group of friends, and sure, you might develop friendships, put yourself on a friends list, but there's no world. There's no MMO.
Yeah.
Steve, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to kind of the same point, that I think Guild Wars 2, recent MMO, really did a good job of kind of bringing back that feeling of necessity for cooperative play out in the world. They had a lot of mechanics built into the game, like, you could just be out running around and all of a sudden you were in a group. You didn't have to do anything to get in it. You could fight world bosses and monsters and stuff, and you would, as long as you did a substantial amount of damage, and meaning that you didn't just run up and hit the mob one time and run away. Everyone shared in the XP, everyone shared in loot. They had nodes for mining and herbalism and stuff like that, and they were shared, so it wasn't like you were fighting other people to get to that stuff. And it really kind of created a more just like a friendly environment, I think, because they didn't have all those things where you're fighting or trying to tag a mob before someone else can get to it, and it just had this result that people were playing together, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I haven't played the game in a while now, but in those first 6 months or so that game was out, it was just a blast being on those servers and meeting people and having a good time, and I feel like that was a step in the right direction, and I hope more MMOs do that. I haven't had enough time with stuff like WildStar or Elder Scrolls to really know where that's going, but I hope more people follow suit and try some different things, because a lot of times the argument from Blizzard has always been like, oh, we can't do that, you can't share mobs, you can't do tagging and stuff like that. We're sharing it and they'll have a list of reasons why you can't do that, but the team at ArenaNet were just like, you know what, we're just going to do it, and here you go, and it worked great. It was a good time.
What do you guys think about this is something that's kind of happened a lot since the inception of MMOs. I feel like players have less of a stake in the world itself. Back in in older MMOs, like player housing was a thing, and not just like in GTA Online where like you buy a house and it just happens to be an apartment and you live in this building and it doesn't really affect the world at all. Like you used to be able to buy a house and put it into the world, and that was there within the world. You used to be able to craft your own goods and sell them at vendors in the world. Like I feel like that kind of personal, you know, stuff is kind of going away. Like sure, there's crafting, but it's not as necessary as it kind of used to be. And you know, sure there might be housing, but it's not as necessary as it used to be. Like here's my example: a game like Minecraft, which everybody knows has absolutely exploded. I wouldn't really call it an MMO, but some people do play it MMO-ish. But I think those people, when they build their own homes and they start collecting their own stuff and they have things to show off to other people, they have a stake in that little world and they want to keep going back to it. And that doesn't even have a monthly subscription fee to it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what Sony's, you know, kind of trying to capture in a bottle for their, what's it called, the EverQuest Landmark.
Yeah.
The new, the news. It's kind of like their version of that, I guess.
That already bothers me, by the way. That could go off on a whole different topic about like free to play versus like pay to play MMOs and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But go ahead.
On the world building thing though, it's a balance, because I think we would all love to shape the world around us and, you know, have a home that we can point to and go, that's mine. That's
right.
Come on, guys. Let's all go in my house. Oh, no need to group. It's right there. You know, let's just go in. But on the same token, if you can place something, much like in Landmark, you're also able to destroy. And when there is the ability to destroy someone else's, someone's going to do it to grief. Someone's going to do it just to be, you know, an asshole.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that, along with space being a problem, was why they put it in instances, or the GTA thing where, oh, you go through that door and everybody's apartment is
through that door.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. World of Warcraft has their garrisons, which are player housing that's coming in this new expansion of theirs.
Oh, good for them.
I'm kind of excited for it because it'll be much like GTA, where you kind of choose which apartment you want, and then it's over there, but that guy's apartment's over there, and that guy's apartment's over there, but there's maybe like 1,000 people which have their apartment in each of those places, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the garrisons. You choose the zone it's in, and then everybody's is there in that zone. So I don't necessarily think that is such a huge thing that, say, a whole MMO Landmark needs to be based on it. I think it's a nice idea, but I think there's so many other problems in the MMO sphere that could be addressed that would make games better. But I think at the end, you know, with MMOs as they are right now, it's the mass appeal. Companies look to Blizzard and go, we can have 20 million players too if we make something great. So let's make our game to appeal to the masses, to appeal to everyone. Whether they be young, old, hardcore, casual, somewhere in between, and they try and make their game to compete with WoW, which is a big mistake, because it's an incumbent, you know, and the incumbent has an incredible advantage. Says the Canadian who, anyway, long story, using U.S. political jargon. Anyway, I'm not a pundit, but they try and make it a mass appeal. They try and compete, and competing, you know, it's probably not the thing to do. Yeah,
I hear you. I think that's probably part of the big problem is everybody's gone this samey route. This, hey, we're gonna make an MMO that's really more story based and not so much role playing based. You know, like, when was the last time you actually picked a role playing game and you were like, this is the role I'm going to be. I'm going to be this elven archer from whatever, and here he is. No, I mean, you kind of pick a class and you go through it, and almost all your leveling is based on the story that you have to follow to get something out of the game. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, for like Dark Age and Ultima Online and City Hero, I think City Heroes had a storyline, but I didn't follow it that much. And Dark Age...
You can skip it.
Yeah, Dark Age and like Ultima Online, I don't think anybody played those stories. It was more like, hey, I'm going in because I want to be this mage who is from Britain, and here's gonna be my spawn point, etc., etc. And so it was more about building your own person and not so much as like seeing what the story was gonna be like. That to me is kind of one of the bigger issues with modern MMOs. Too much of it is story driven. I still kind of would like a good story to be there, but so much of it is like absolutely dependent on you going through that story to get anywhere within the game. Like, oh, you want to get off this starting island? You got to go through the story. Oh, do you want to go to the second island from the non-starting island? You still got to go through the story,
I mean, there are games when story does it good, like SWTOR for one.
Yeah.
This might just be me, but despite the fact that of course it's a BioWare game, so your choices oftentimes aren't really choices. They're just what dialogue do you get immediately after clicking the button.
Right.
And like one or two lines of dialogue are different in the whole dialogue tree, and that's your choice. There were some legitimate choices that you made that changed your character, but the fact that every quest, every thing you did, there was like almost a cutscene, a cinematic, something that made the story, and it made you feel like you were actually playing something meaningful. That was its niche. That was SWTOR's niche, and I think they did that well, and it set itself apart. And for the first couple of months, SWTOR had a huge player base.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the fastest growing MMO in history, which was their big tagline. They had a convention.
Yeah.
Like, they had a convention like 3 months in going, we're the best. And then 2 months later, they had like lost half their subscribers, and that was it. So
because they completed the story. All their players completed the story.
Exactly. They completed their story, and that was it. They may have enjoyed the story, but there was nothing to continue. And I think SWTOR's big fault was that they stopped making story. They just went, here's some more dungeons, just like WoW. Here's some more dungeons with a little bit of story. Here's another planet with a little bit of story. But there was no furthering of your personal story. And that was the big selling point for SWTOR. And they didn't get it. They threw it away. EA, BioWare, whoever, they threw SWTOR away. And I hate that.
Okay.
One thing about World of Warcraft, I guess, in particular, but I guess this kind of has transcended to new MMOs that have come out as well. One thing that I think is pretty different now, and for guys like us who have been playing them for a while and kind of have a little bit of the rose-tinted glasses, one thing that's different now is that an MMO comes out and there's already like a Wowhead caliber website for it with all the data mining, and I feel like one thing that kind of started turning me off. I mean, I've been through several rounds now of endgame in World of Warcraft, and you kind of reach that point in the game where and especially now because of the way the internet is, it's like there's kind of like a checklist for everything. It's like you have to go and ask Mr. Robot, and you have to plug in your character, and you have to find out your max, best in slot stuff, and there's all these quest lines you have to do, so you got to go out and go on Wowhead or whatever and look all that stuff up. And I think that's part of the community more so than anything.
I think that is more the community, because you get those guys that are like, oh, you're a stalker and you chose that skill instead of the other skill. What's wrong with you? And you're like, well, I thought I was just playing a game here. I didn't realize I had to fill the formula out,
Yeah, everything's become very cookie cutter. And even Blizzard's been trying to combat that by changing up the talent tree system and, kind of throwing that out the window. And, whether or not that succeeded, I don't really think it did, but whatever.
Spoiler alert, no.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is that, the level of information out there and what's expected of you as far as going out and reading that, it's not I kind of love a game. Like, I've been playing a ton of Persona 4 lately, and the thing I love about that game is that I haven't read anything about it. I know nothing about it. I go into a boss fight, and I just have to sit there and figure out what's the best. What is this boss weak against? What's he strong against? What's he gonna block and repel back? there's not a lot of that left in the game. It's kind of like, and that goes back to the dungeon finder and all that stuff. You go into a dungeon finder with a group of 4 other people you don't know, or you go in with the raid finder with 24 people you don't know, and there's no patience for learning. Nobody wants to sit there and wipe on the boss over and over again while you guys figure out. It's like, well, you know, you should have already watched the YouTube video. There's like 20 different sites with how-to tutorials for this boss. You should have watched them all. But like, that kind of, to me, isn't fun anymore, because like, I want to go in and figure it out, you know. And I guess unless you're in one of those raid guilds that are, you know, world first, and that's what they're doing. They're in beta and they're just trying and wiping until they figure out the boss. If you're not in that, then the expectation is that you're just supposed to have gone out and read, you know, the strats and watched the video and already know what you're doing when you get in there. And there's no time to learn it. There's no time to figure it out and play it like a game. It's like you just have to go in there and, you know, go through the motions of what's been established by those raid teams that did it, you know, 3 months ago.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that is partly community based, and it's also partly game based as well. You know.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, there's a lot of things in WoW. I mean, if you gave me complete control of WoW, there's a lot of things that I'd do. But then again, I think we all would have in our favorite games.
Yeah.
We would have changes to make. But the one thing that I think in WoW that really kind of upsets some people and has the whole cause and effect thing for that very lack of patience, despite the fact, you know, I mean, I guess in addition to the fact this is the internet, of course, a place, you know, notorious for having no patience whatsoever.
Right. Zero.
But, yeah, zero patience, negative patience, actually, is that some things in WoW take so long. Like some bosses in WoW, in their true form or whatever, will take 20+ minutes to kill. And if you wipe at 19 minutes and 52 seconds, you have to start all over again. But not only that, while you're running back to the instance and repairing and blah, blah, blah. I got to go to the bathroom. Oh, guys, my wife says I got to go take the dog out. I got to take the garbage out. I got to do laundry.
Yeah.
And then it's like, cool, just clear the trash without me. I'll be right back. And then you spend half an hour waiting to go again for another 20-minute attempt. And it's just, you're just tired of it. You're tired of the waiting, tired of the crap that comes along with MMOs and the internet.
Yeah. But also, to counter that a little bit, sometimes that is when the community building happens, while you're waiting for Joe from Montana to get back from taking out the garbage or walking his dog. You're talking to the other people that are waiting, so be like, so how was work this week, you know, kind of thing, or did you find anything good today?
That's true.
I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, raiding, that was the exact experience I had raiding through Burning Crusade and Lich King, and I mean, I made some of my best friends in the game during that time, and you know, so it wasn't all bad. It definitely rose-colored glasses a little bit, but
yeah,
because everything you said was 100% accurate.
Yeah, it's you could tell I've rated a lot in WoW. But I mean, sure, there's tons of good, but there's so much that could be improved. You know, if they had something for you to do while you're standing around. I mean, yeah, if you're in a guild, after a year or so, you know everybody. You know that, I know that, Tegra and Kyofu over there are getting married, blah, 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 and so they're being kind of bratty cutie over there with themselves. You know the inner dynamics in your group, but I mean, but now in World of Warcraft they have pet battles, and you can, like, pet battle each other while you wait, which is, for all of the comparisons to Pokemon, I actually think pet battling was one of the better things they put into WoW as of late.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it gave you something to do with all the pets and all this other stuff you've been collecting for years. So I mean, give people something to do, and they'll do it, and they'll do it with each other. But don't bore people. Don't have people sitting around waiting.
Yeah, and also at the same time, don't automate. And don't cut out that chance to interact with other people and have them be real people and a real reason to interact with them in the game.
Yeah. Because when you put a menu, when you put a GUI in front of a player to automate something, you are effectively making everyone else that uses that GUI an NPC.
Yeah.
And that removes the MMO. Mm-hmm. And when you make PCs into NPCs, you take away from the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of my best times playing MMOs were going into MMOs where I didn't know anybody, and you would go in and you would make the friends on there. But like, I got to admit, most of the recent MMOs that I've been playing, like, I really enjoyed Final Fantasy 14, but if there was nobody else that I knew that was playing it, I knew I could have just been playing that by myself, and the experience wouldn't have been that much different. So again, in that regard, it almost could have served better as like a multiplayer role-playing game and not necessarily an MMO, worthy of a subscription cost.
True.
You know what? That actually probably is a pretty good segue into it. What about subscription costs versus, free to play? Where do you guys stand?
Should
you
I
get a
go
lot
first
of
on this one?
What's that?
I said, should I go first on
Yeah,
this one?
go
'Cause
ahead,
I'm quite
dude, go ahead.
opinionated on this.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. See, I think subscription is a better method and payment sort of scheme for an MMO.
Cheers to you.
Because, thank you. I raise a glass to you as well, sir. Because, let's face it, I don't want to talk bad about the internet or anything, so don't get me wrong on that. However, the internet is a horrible place, and I think we all kind of know that. If you open the floodgates and let anyone in, you get the quality you pay for.
Yeah.
So, if it's free, you get free back. And, well, free is attractive because, it gets everyone in, and then all you need to do is give them one thing that they have to have, and they'll pay for it. And then you have the money. And boom, and that's all you need. You need their money. With a subscription, you have that sort of, I'm paying my fee. Here's my, here's the toll. Here's your entry fee, and you're invested. You don't want to waste, and although some people will, but you don't want to waste your time. However, as a businessman myself, I realize that the best of both worlds can work in the MMO sphere. Personally, my favorite of the whole thing has been City of Heroes and Villains, or City of Heroes at the end.
When they went free to play.
When they went free to play, because you could subscribe, and if you subscribed, you got all these perks. You got all these points. Nothing was locked to you, etc., etc. But if you didn't pay, nothing was really locked to you per se. I mean, there was a few things that were locked, but they were the end game stuff. But you could pay. But even if you subscribed, there was still stuff you could buy. And, as someone who really loves City of Heroes, I bought. Like, a lot. Like, when they shut down, oh man, I was choked.
But I think the opposite of that is City of Heroes was always originally designed with the subscription model in mind. And then when they were like, oh shit, we're not doing so great. We need to become more profitable. Let's go free to play and subscription.
Yeah. And but like I said, it's the whole, you get what you ask for. If you don't ask for anything, you're going to get that same quality back. Are there certain games where free to play absolutely works? Okay, I'm not discounting that, but if you want to have a quality, long-lasting MMO where if you are doing things right, you make money, then you need to have a subscription. Because I think right now with SWTOR, I think they're seeing that, yes, they're making some money right now, but their player base is still going down because they're not putting out meaningful content. Yeah.
There's a difference between being profitable and being fun.
Yeah, and I think my SWTOR character right now is walking around looking like a droid, missing parts of his chest and all this kind of thing, and it's cool and it's awesome looking, but the game hasn't changed. It's just cosmetic stuff, and while I appreciate cosmetics, I'd rather there be more content. And if I'm paying $15 for content every month, well, if you don't deliver on that content, guess what? You're not getting my money. And I think that's the problem in the industry. If you're doing a free-to-play game and you don't put out content, no one can fault you. You're not putting out content. Games for free. What did you expect?
What about you? What about? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Oda.
But if you're doing a subscription and you're releasing content,
yeah,
boom, done.
Steve, where do you stand on this, bud?
You know, I think Oda, I think you made an excellent point as far as, you know, you get what you ask for from your audience, and I think that free to play definitely brings an element of troll-like behavior in the games, more so than a game where you're ponying up some cash. I do really like. I think you have to earn that subscription fee though. I think that Blizzard has done a really good job of delivering content. Maybe a little less so in the last couple expansions, where a year's gone by, where we were stuck on one tier of raid content. But I think that the buy-to-play model is actually one I really like a lot. Which
you mean like Guild Wars? Guild
Wars, yeah, where you buy the game and then they don't charge you a subscription fee. They still keep coming out with new content. I'm actually a little surprised that they haven't done paid kind of micro expansions for the game. But they still keep putting out content, so that's pretty good. I mean, I give them some credit for that. I don't know how the hell they're making money, but I guess off the thing that I didn't like in Guild Wars was that they've got the you know, you have to buy keys to open the chests that drop and stuff like that, and that stuff I kind of I don't know, I get a little. I mean, it's optional, but I'm way too. I don't have enough willpower to not buy the keys because I get the chest. I mean, I gotta open the damn thing.
Because there could be anything inside.
And it's always something terrible. I mean, it's never anything good. It's always some piece of crap, and I'm just like, God damn it, I'm out $5 now. Yeah, I kind of I agree with everything Oda said. I just I think that in order to have that subscription, you really have to earn it. And yeah, if you're not putting content out, then there's no point in paying it. Like, for example, Final Fantasy 14, that's $15 a month, I believe, or 12 15, or something like that.
It might have been 12 for the first month, but 15 thereafter. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, a really cool game. I liked it a lot. I was having a good time playing it, and I wanted to continue playing it. But when push came to shove, and I looked at, you know,
you look at your monthly expenses.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at all the line items of bills, and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I can have WoW and this on here. So, you know, that had to go, unfortunately. But I think that's the challenge, is that people look at, you know, what they can afford, and for people like us who play a lot of MMOs and are kind of jumping around between them, I think it's a good idea to have something in place, maybe something a little bit beyond the 30-day trial. To give people a chance to kind of really see how the game's going to play out. Even
if it's 45 days or 2 whole months, you know, honestly.
32 days, I think, is acceptable.
Because everybody knows those first 2 days are shit, because, you know, the servers are always slammed and...
Oh, yeah. I know Final Fantasy, I don't think we even got to play it for, like, the first 3 weeks or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I know they extended the trial for people, which was a nice gesture. But
yeah,
I feel like in those cases, I almost don't mind, you know, going the buy-to-play route and then having some sort of subscription down the road. I don't know. I'm, you know, there's a lot of possibilities, but I don't know what the answer is.
Well, see, there is one game, and I'm a huge fan of this game. You can call it an MMO shooter. You could call it a Diablo-esque. You could not even necessarily call it an MMO, but it is MMO-ish. That I have thrown away my I hate free-to-plays, and it's a game called Warframe. I don't know if you guys have played this game, but everything in Warframe, besides the super cosmetic stuff, you can craft with in-game materials that you can find in-game, find in missions. You can craft, you can make them. You can make the weapons, the Warframes, which I guess function as like classes, all that kind of thing. You can craft them, you can make them, boom. But if you don't want to wait, if you don't want to craft, a couple of bucks, you know, we'll just hand it to you. And I've played that game, I think, God, I mean, obviously it's not as much as I've played WoW, but I've played it a lot, and I've given them a lot of money, and I am not sorry. I'm a Canadian, and I'm not sorry.
I'm in the camp that I think that almost all free-to-plays are just shit. You know, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like, I know there are exceptions to the rules, but they are the rare exceptions to the rule. And I think it's because going into it, I feel and I know that for the most part they've developed it around you wanting to spend that in-game money, and then you have to refresh your in-game coffers because, you know, the grinding route takes longer than it would if you were playing a subscription-based game, you know, or in some cases that item that you want doesn't exist if you were playing it normally. It only exists if you pay with those in-game, you know, bubble dollars or whatever the hell you want to call them, and that just drives me crazy. I started Old Republic after it went free to play, and I think I maybe put in an hour into it before I was like, this is disgusting. I can't play this anymore. Like, the story did not bring me in. Like, everywhere I went was like one ad after another from EA telling me how I needed to like upgrade crap, and like even the initial screen that I was looking at, I was like, what am I looking at here? Half of this is, you know, stuff trying to have me buy in. So that kind of drove me crazy. I do think on the opposite side of that, I do think that $15 is too much to ask of your players. You know, because what does that work out to a year? That's 30 every 2 months and 60 every 4, so that's $120 a year, right? Did I do the math right on that one? Calculator.
Most games have like if you buy 6 months at a time, you only pay like, you know, $10, $12 for each individual month, and so we'll just say $120. It's a round-ish number. I mean, you probably pay close to 150, I think, when you really get down to it. That's probably a closer number when you're paying like $12 a month, but
180.
That's
still a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Well, not for me.
Not okay. For most people, that's a lot of money.
I'm different. I'm different than most people. But money's not really an object for me. As in, on the computer here to my left, you can't see it, but I'm currently bidding on a limousine. So.
Oh right. I remember seeing that on.
So, yeah. So I'm currently in an auction for a limousine that I want to buy. Anyway. However, I still appreciate that value. Like, if an MMO came out that was like $20 a month, I'd be like, what are you doing to earn that?
Right.
Like, really, what are you doing to earn that? And I think that might actually be the source of a lot of MMOs issues, is that MMOs either don't try, they try too hard, or they just don't care, and they just want your money.
Which is the feeling that you get from a lot of free-to-play games.
Yeah, because, I mean, they're a company, and a company's purpose is to make money.
To make money, right?
And making that game was the whole purpose, to make money. But there's that tipping point between, I'd like to make money, here's a nice product, and I'd like to make some money, here's the keys, oh, look at the keys, woo, woo. And any parent will kind of know where that comes. And that's just the industry, though, and I mean, something drastic would have to happen for that to change.
I personally think that the sweet spot should be like, I would say $60 a year, to be honest with you, to pay for that next expansion. So kind of a cross between the pay to play like Guild Wars and the monthly subscription, you know, like pretty much every other MMO out there, every other big name MMO out there. And I think that $60 a year would be enough to fund and pay for the staff that are supporting the game, should be enough to have them create the next expansion. And if they've got the people playing for that full year, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to be like, oh shoot, the next expansion's coming out, it's $40. I want to be able to get access to this because everybody else on the game is going to be playing it. I'm still playing it, I'm loving it. They're going to shell out the next $40. So I really do think that $60 over the year is the sweet spot. But I think that the way they should do it is like $10 to get a 2-month subscription, as opposed to like $15 per month. You know, because I think we can all agree there's some months where time just gets away from you, and you're like, I just spent $15 and I didn't even get a chance to spend 2 hours in the game this month. You know, but if I had 2 months worth of pay time that I put in, I'd feel a little less bad about my investment in the game. I might pay again. Because who knows? I might play in the next 2 months, I might not, but it's only $10. I'm gonna keep going, and at the same time, it filters out that you know, rabble that just come in for the free to plays and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I stand. It's not often tossed out there. I know it's a crazy thought, but that's where I stand. I think their pay to play monthly subscription fee is a little too high.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, obviously, given a choice between getting something for $30 and getting it for $15,
Mm-hmm.
if it's the exact same product, I'll choose the $15 every day, all day. But,
Right.
But I mean, I would love, and this is just me, and I guess I'm kind of weird like this, but I would love to see the financials behind some of the MMOs that are out there right now.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
even just like a basic spreadsheet of subscribers, income, blah, 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 payout, server costs, bandwidth, etc., etc. I'd love to see that breakdown, because you gotta know that, like, some NCSoft, some Perfect World International game is probably paying, more for their bandwidth, etc., than Blizzard is.
Right.
Because Blizzard it's like saying, oh, Walmart pays less for the stuff they stock on their shelves because they're fucking Walmart.
And they buy in massive bulk, yeah.
Yeah, and they buy in massive bulk, whereas I'm sure the smaller companies have to pay more. So, where's that cutoff? If you're a bigger MMO, say, can you lower your prices a bit?
Mm-hmm.
So that as the game gets more subscribers, your cost comes down? Or, can you do that? Like, all that financial stuff, just like, oh, I want it in my brain. And, unfortunately, we won't get that because,
Right.
companies. But, yeah, that's sort of where I'd love to see the numbers, because I would love, and of course this coming from the rich guy, but I would love for my money to be justified. Like, if I see that Blizzard pays, $50 million a month for their bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
which is an incredible number, but if they're legit paying that amount and they only make $3 a month from each individual player, or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
then okay, I feel totally justified in paying my $12 a month.
Right.
But if they're making $10
Right.
a month off of each player,
Yeah.
I'd be like, guys, let's bring it down.
I totally agree. I guess my final thought, I really want MMOs to bring back the role-playing aspect of it. I don't feel like I play a role anymore. I feel like I'm playing that class. Like you're playing the archer class. You're not. I really want them to open up the skill trees so that if I wanted to make a mage who could also use a bow, then great. If I wanted to make a stalker dude who can also use a two-handed sword, awesome. If I want to make somebody who's like all of his skills were specced out in like, crafting, then great. I think those things should be like available to people. I think that one of the biggest losses, and this is personally, I think that most MMOs don't have anymore, is also the lack of role-playing servers. Like, there used to always be a role-playing server that you go in where, like, you could not talk about real-world stuff. You would actually get booted out of the server if you started talking about real-world stuff. You were your character. You played that role, and it was fun. And so, the whole role-playing aspect has kind of gone away. But, yeah.
It's still out there. It's just very much a niche now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Yeah.
I mean, City of Heroes had the Virtue server. Bless you, City of Heroes, for having that server.
I loved City of Heroes.
Oh man, and no game has ever done character customization as well as City of Heroes.
Right? You would spend. I created like just I remember I would spend days just making characters and not even playing the game.
Yeah, you would spend countless hours creating a character and then like almost never play it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was and you had fun. You would have fun doing that because character customization. That being said, though, on the role playing thing, there are certain games where it is lent to more.
Yeah.
And if the player base wants it, then the player base should have it, but it needs to be policed. And that's the big problem with role playing in MMOs. There's no policing because everyone can always argue, I could be a total troll, but I could argue that my trolling is in character, and that you can't do anything about it. Like, it was even brought up at that SWOTOR conference. Well, we have on role-playing servers, we have people with like really stupid names and blah, blah, and they even said, well, the Star Wars universe has canonical names, like She Sits on Two Fingers is a legit name of a woman in the Star Wars universe. She Sits on Two Fingers is a legit name of somebody in the Star Wars universe.
Engage Google Foo.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a legit person in the Star Wars universe, and they were talking about it. I might be saying like woman sits on two fingers, someone sits on two fingers. And it's canonical, and so you can always justify your trolling. So you have to have enforcement of the RP rule set, or no one's going to roleplay, because you'll get people who come in to troll, to make YouTube videos. There are tons of YouTube videos right now. You can look at YouTube of people trolling RP servers and MMOs. And it's this whole genre of YouTube video, and it's kind of weird. But also, some of the role players are also really weird.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. So there needs to be policing. There has to be a balance. But if your game lends itself to it and your customers want to do it, police it. Engage it, do it, make fun of, have fun with it. But I don't know that every game is suited to role playing.
Yeah.
Warframe, as much as I'd love to see some sort of role playing aspect in Warframe, there's no role playing in Warframe. There's no role playing, in there's a little bit of Neverwinter, but there's no server, there's no anything. It's just all a conglomerate single server. Yes, there's role-playing in EVE Online. Oh, God, I both hated and loved that game at the same time. Oh, man, did I hate and love that game. There's so much possibilities in the MMO marketplace and universe. But unfortunately, like we've been talking about, there are just certain things which are causing the MMO marketplace to kind of take a little bit of a plunge.
Yeah.
And either something's going to have to come along to bring it back up, or, much like the video game crash, I think we might actually see an MMO crash in the future.
I don't doubt that would happen at all. I really don't doubt that would happen at all.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about PvP?
And it would suck, because I love MMOs. I do. I love PvP. Ooh. PvP can work so long as you don't take control of a person's character away, which is why I hate World of Warcraft PvP, because it's all about, I got turned into a sheep. Okay, I have a trinket that lets me break out of this. I use the and I'm immediately a sheep again, because they were waiting for me to use that trinket. So now I'm a sheep for 8 seconds. Okay, I'm out of sheep, I'm stunned. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm blinded. And meanwhile, your compatriots are being killed, and you're just standing there unable to do anything, and you're like, well, that was fun. PvP, I got to stand here and do nothing. But, certain games have done it right, that it's fast-paced, and so long as it's done well, I can dig it. Put rewards in, meaningful rewards, and, yeah, tons of it. Fun.
In Ultima Online, the old PvP, there were different kinds of servers. There was the role-playing servers. There was PvE servers where there was no PvP allowed within the game. There were PvP anything goes servers where, as long as you were outside the confines of the protection of the town guards, anyone could attack you. So everybody was basically on the honor system. And there was something in the game called an honor system. So if you killed a lot of people, or even if you just killed anyone, if you moused over that person, they showed up as red. Or if they had just freshly killed somebody, they would just, as they appeared on your screen, they were already red. So if you were a lower level player, you would just run the hell away from anybody that was red appearing on your screen. And then later on, in games like Warhammer did it, and they did it okay. Dark Age of Camelot did it, and they're going to try to do it in, or at least I know they did it in Guild Wars 2, and I know they're going to try to do it in Elder Scrolls Online, where they're going to have the open areas of PvP, where like you'll have keeps to to take control of and fight over specific locations where there's that PvP area. That's the kind of PvP I personally really love. Where if you want to go and engage in it, you can, and you can have like a big lasting effect on how the whole rest of your realm works. I like that kind of PvP. I think that kind of thing needs to be done more often. I don't like the little instance like, oh, here you are, you and 5 people up against 5 other people, and then once, all 5 are dead, game over, go back to your regular world. That doesn't seem worth it to me.
That sort of arena setting, some people like it. I've done it. For one of the seasons, the arena seasons in World of Warcraft, I did it pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And it can be fun because you go into it knowing that's what you're going to have.
Yeah.
That experience. I don't mind it, but yeah, that open world. I guess I'm of two schools with that. I love the fact that like the Guild Wars 2 did. Oh, excuse me, where you could go to an area and it was a PvP area and you fought over meaningful, tangible, physical things.
Yeah.
And they gained bonuses or gave you options, catapults, things like that. That was great. I love that. But also I love kind of the World of Warcraft thing where it's sort of purposeful, meaningful, set up, hard-coded, bash against each other kind of things. And then the server types. I mean, I like playing on PvP servers. I'll get that right away. I love playing on PvP servers. The danger, the excitement, always looking around. You can't just tunnel vision like a horse with blinders on and not look anywhere else. You have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a guy over there who could attack me. Perhaps I shouldn't grab 14 monsters and try and kill them all at once. Maybe I should move over behind this wall and pull things to me so he doesn't see me. Or, you have choices, meaningful choices to make in the game, instead of, oh god, I gotta tag that monster before that other guy does, otherwise I'm gonna have to wait 2 minutes, and I can't stand that. Let me alt-tab and watch a YouTube video while I wait for that monster to... Like, that's not an MMO. Excitement is the MMO.
Yeah. Steve, what about you, man? What are your thoughts on PvP? On your notes, I'm reading here, your notes say shit or get off the pot.
Well, you know what? I've never been a huge fan of PvP as far as like battlegrounds in World of Warcraft. However, and like you guys have already mentioned, like the stuff in Guild Wars, or even when WoW, when they had stuff like Wintergrasp. Is it Wintergrasp? Yeah, Wintergrasp was the big open area where all the PvP stuff would happen. That stuff I love. I kind of wish there was no difference between PvP and PvE servers, and that's what I meant by the shit or get off the pot comment was I just wish like they would just have made a decision and said, you know what, there's going to be areas in the game where you have that experience where you're trying to level but you're going to be possibly getting killed by people from the other faction, and then there's areas where you can level and go through, and if you want to play without dealing with that, you can do that too, and they kind of have like a parallel experience. Like, again, using WoW as the example, like you can level up, like say you're on the Horde side, you can go up all the way through like the Barrens and all that stuff and never ever set foot on the other continent for the most part until maybe later in the game, whereas where you could start out in I can't remember the name of it, where the undead start. In that area.
Terracefall?
Yeah, right, yeah, Terracefall. Sorry. So you could have two parallel leveling experiences where one has all PvP stuff and one has PvE. I guess it's not as much of an issue now, but at the time when the game came out, the big issue was you were on a PvP server and then all your friends were on a PvE server, or vice versa. And you're like, okay, well now I need to either re-roll, or they didn't have character transfers back then. I wish they would have just kind of said, you know what, we're just gonna have one kind of server, and there's different ways you can experience PvP and PvE on the same server. It's all kind of intermingled. It all has, lore to back it up. And I just wish that there was that kind of experience. And I guess that's something that's, going to come up in later MMOs. I can't think of any that have had that experience. It's always just kind of, you're on a PvP server, or you're on a PvE server. But I don't really care for Battlegrounds style PvP so much.
Yeah. In City of Heroes with the arena type battles, I remember I actually stopped doing it because it was almost unfair. I was a controller, and it was like if I didn't have the guy frozen with one type of ice spell, he was frozen with the other type of ice spell, and of course they also did damage over time. So it was like, I don't care who I'm up against as long as it's not another controller. I won. I don't care if you were a blaster or a tank or a scrapper. You're dead because you were just stuck in the spot.
Unless you're a mastermind.
Right. There was like always that one class.
Go my minions.
But that was always the way it was. It was like, okay, freeze. But yeah. All right, here's my final pie in the sky. Never ever gonna happen, but what I would love to see happen in an MMO is getting rid of the world maps. And actually bringing back in the concept of learning where the hell you are and where the hell you're going based on the world around you. I just think that would be awesome, or only have it mapped out if you were there kind of thing, and not just look on the map and be like, oh yeah, that city is up there. Like, maybe map it out as you go or something like that. But yeah,
WoW does that.
What WoW does that?
Yeah, you have to go to a place, and once you hit like a small boundary, it reveals a small chunk of the map.
Yeah,
and it'll say, "Oh, you are now in," and it pops at the top of the screen like, "Oh, you are now in Terraceful Glades."
Yeah,
and then you have to ride for another 10 minutes, and then it goes, "Oh, you are entering," and then it opens up like a little 1-inch, square on your map saying you are here. So
yeah. All, like I said, all very pie in the sky. Getting rid of fast travel and getting rid of that mini map. Bringing back that world immersion. That's what I want.
Ideally, I guess for me, in my ideal world, I would like to have a larger world. I think where there's lots of room for things to happen, random events, things that make the world feel alive. And I know WoW does this to a point, but in all honesty, World of Warcraft, in terms of geography, is a small place. You get on a flying mount and you point yourself in a direction and go. Within a couple of minutes, you're flying off the map and into the ocean, and that's it. I would... And not to say that a certain MMO, Project Titan, might not have had a much larger world, but I would just like to see a huge, wide, expansive world, and maybe not have so many people per server, like have your guild and stuff like that. Still have lots of people, but don't cram it in. I see so many places, so many games where you play and, oh look, there are 50,000 adventurers within my arm's grasp. And I'm supposed to feel meaningful in this world? I'm supposed to...
They're all talking to the same quest giver that you're talking to, and they're jumping up and down as you're trying to talk to that person in front of you.
Yeah, and they're sitting on their mounts, so you can't click on the quest giver. And it's like, there's no immersion. You want to adventure or quest or do missions, or you want to exist in the world and feel meaningful, not... I'm just cracking through these, like, just a series of tangible elements, An MMO has to feel like, you're making an impact, whether it be through phasing, or, whatever you want to use, technology you want to use. But you also have to feel a sense of community. So it's a balance, and I think that's the whole reason why we don't have that. Is because you have to find that balance, and it's always shifting, so no one can ever pin it down.
What about you, Steve? What's your pie in the sky? Wish it would happen, but never gonna.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would love this for this to happen. So, and hopefully it does, because I think this is what in order for MMOs to grow, I just want to get lost again in a game, like the same way I got lost in World of Warcraft for the first 6 months or whatever that I was playing it, back in 2004 or 5, whenever the hell I started.
10 years ago.
Yeah, a while ago. I want to go into a game and not have any sort of preconceived idea of what it is I'm supposed to be doing, what my ultimate goal is. I just want to get lost and kind of fumble my way through it. I don't want to feel like I'm just going to a quest hub and doing 24 quests and then moving to the next quest hub and doing a bunch of more quests, and everything right now in WoW and all of the other MMOs I've played since in the last 6 or 7 years have just felt like that to me, where I just feel like I'm on this linear path. And it's really one of the things with a game like Minecraft that why I fell in love with it so much, because it's literally a game. It's like, you know, it's a game about nothing. You're thrown into this world and you just kind of have to, you know, figure it out. And I feel like I've had more role-playing experiences, to your point, Randy, in Minecraft than I have in most MMOs that I've played, because I'm just being this character. I'm living this life, and I'm you know, surviving in this world. And so that's really what I would like out of, you know, a future MMO, is that experience where I'm not so focused on just getting to end game. And, you know, that maybe that's more on me than it is on the game itself. And like we were saying earlier about the community and these websites and all the data mining and knowing everything about the game, you know, before you're even level 10.
You almost describe what would be like a multiplayer Elder Scrolls game, where you don't really have, I mean, there might be a story, but you don't need to go to these quest hubs. You could just wander into a town and be like, holy crap, I just discovered a quest from this dude here who I didn't even know was a quest giver, and now I'm going to go to the other side of the map and I'm going to figure it out.
Yep.
And it might be totally dangerous along the way.
Yeah, that's something I love about the Elder Scrolls games. And I mean, I had, you know, more so than just a standard MMO, I think what I would have liked is exactly what you're describing. Is a situation where I can just play in Skyrim and I can go around from town to town, and whatever happens, you know, I might do things completely out of order from how you do them, but we're still going to have the same ultimate experience, is that we're going to level up and go through this kind of larger overarching story. But then at the same time, if you and I want to form up and do a party and go explore one of those little caves, you know, and do that cooperatively, I think I would have enjoyed something like that a lot more. I'm not super excited about the Elder Scrolls MMO. I don't mean to sound like I'm writing it off or anything. I don't know very much about it.
In that note, though, I think a lot of people have written off Elder Scrolls Online. Like the loud common consensus online is that most people are calling it to be the next Star Wars, you know, or Star Wars Old Republic. I don't want to say Star Wars Galaxies, but they're calling it to be pay to play at first and then go free to play like 6 to 8 months down the line.
Yeah, I really don't know, man. I hope, you know, I like that franchise, so I hope it does well. I don't really know, but yeah, what you just described is exactly what I would have preferred than the route they took.
Yeah, right now, due to a NDA and a disclosure agreement, I cannot say or confirm that I may or may not be playing Elder Scrolls Online or what occurs. But I've heard that leveling in Elder Scrolls Online takes so long, so long to level. Like I heard that a friend played for like 2 nights almost completely straight, and they hit level 6.
Wow.
Like it's like leveling in Skyrim. Like it just takes so long, and unfortunately the world is, I've heard that the world is very barren, but the combat's different. Like the combat is this sort of blend of Skyrim and action MMO. You know, it's not completely action MMO, but it's more Skyrim, but it's not totally Skyrim. It's this unique blend. Unfortunately, they have announced that they're doing subscription, and I think that might be a mistake for the Elder Scrolls series.
Yeah. Do you think it should be free to play, or do you think it should be like pay to play, like Guild Wars or whatever we're calling that?
Buy to play, whatever you want to call it. I think,
yeah.
Because I think buy to play to get people in the door, because fans of the Elder Scrolls are familiar with that. They buy their Elder Scrolls game, they install it, they play it, they quest, they do their, you know, and that way the people who enjoy the Elder Scrolls game for what they are, immersive role-playing experiences with lots of free roaming quests, open worlding, etc., they can enjoy the game for that. But then they put in a bunch of more MMO-centric stuff, because right now there's not a lot of, I hear There's not a lot of MMO eccentricities in the game. That really scream traditional MMO. That a good thing? Bad thing? You don't know. But I'm not saying I'm totally writing it off. But what I'm saying is that I've heard that the game essentially plays like multiplayer Skyrim with an HD texture pack with no ability to put mods. And my Skyrim that's on my desktop has over 200 mods currently installed.
I don't think I've ever played Skyrim with less than 100. I mean, aside from when it first launched, but like 2 months after it launched, I mean, I was already up to like 120 mods.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, back in 2011, 2012, when I did my Game of the Year video, I had most disappointing game of the year. And that year, I gave it to Skyrim.
Really?
Yes. And I said personally disappointing. Not a bad game. The game was good. The game was great and innovative. But it was disappointing for me because I got into it late. I got into it like month 2, and by that point, the critics and reviewers had been lauding it with perfect tens, game of the year, game of the decade, blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And I walked in going, "Oh man, my mind is about to be blown. I'm about to experience the greatest game conceived in the last decade." And then I walked in and was like, these graphics kind of suck. Like, this looks like PS2 era graphics. And, like, little did I know that, like, a month later they'd release, like, a texture pack for HD and, and all this other stuff. But then, like, a year later, I come back to Skyrim because somebody was telling me about the mods they were using. And I'm like, oh, they have mods? I love modding communities. I love add-on communities, mod communities. I love it. So when I heard it, I'm like, oh, I gotta try it. I have it, so let me install these mods. Boom, mind blown. Game of the year. Like, just with mods, Skyrim was amazing.
Yeah.
But now that I hear that Elder Scrolls Online, but now that I hear Elder Scrolls Online is essentially Skyrim multiplayer with no mods, I'm like, I think you're missing. I think... now it's ZeniMax Studios, which is making Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, ZeniMax Online.
I think ZeniMax is missing that ingredient. Mod makers, add-ons, customization was what made Skyrim great, and what made Oblivion great. And there's none of that. And so I think because they're appealing to the Elder Scrolls crowd, which is expectant of mods, customization, etc., they're appealing to them by making that game, making Elder Scrolls Online, just like Skyrim, just like Oblivion, but they don't allow mods. I think that's what's going to collapse on top of them. I think, they won't have mods, they won't have the customization. Your characters can be customized, kind of like they could in Skyrim, I hear. But it's just, without any mods, without any customization, you can't buy your own home, you can't, move things around, you just can loot, and it's just...
Are you officially going to review Elder Scrolls Online when it comes out?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
I am as well. So we're gonna have to. Let's get on together again after we do our reviews, and we'll like compare our reviews and we'll argue.
Joe is actually doing it as well.
Who's doing it as well?
Joe.
Is he?
Joe.
Let's try to get him on here too. We'll all butt heads and see who's rightest.
Yeah. He's actually in the middle ground right now. He was. I hear he's playing. I hear. I hear he's playing. But he really wants to try the PvP.
Yeah.
And he's spent the last several days grinding, trying to get to level 10 so he could do the PvP. Yeah. And I don't think he's hit there yet. And it's been like 4 days.
Wow.
And it's like, if you can't get to level 10 in 4 days of hardcore,
yeah,
I don't know that your game is in the right place. I don't know.
All right, well, let's I don't know how long we've been chatting, but it feels like a little while, but I feel like we've said some pretty great stuff. Let's do our final thoughts, and then we'll sign out, call it a night. Here, I'll turn off my little green screen. I can see it reflecting off my face here. Steve, go ahead. Your final thoughts, bud.
Well, who wants to kick us off?
Steve, do you want to go first? Final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'll just echo kind of what I said before. Is I just really want to get lost again in an experience, and I haven't had that in a while now.
Okay.
There hasn't been an MMO since my first 6 months in WoW that's hit me the same way, and I just really want to see that again. So hopefully it'll happen sometime soon. Something new.
Oda?
As much as I would absolutely love that as well, I have come to the personal realization that I lost myself in WoW for that first 6 months to a year because WoW was really my first big MMO that I really got into. And since I'd never been in an MMO before, everything was new. From the interfaces to exploring to mounts to player interaction. It was all new. And that's what got me in. And now I'm such an MMO veteran. I've played so many that you just can't surprise me anymore. There's nothing left in the MMO sphere to pull me in that deeply, and so I've had to distance myself from that feeling. On that note, though, I would like to see, as much as this is the soulless corporate bastard in me that is saying this, I want to see an MMO crash. I do. I want to see.
Oh, you mean you want to see the actual like market crash? I was gonna say because we've seen plenty of MMOs crash.
Oh yeah, I've seen plenty of those crash, and we've seen MMOs that were good and profitable crash because of corporate backstabbery. But beyond that, I want to see change. I want to see drastic, industry sweeping change to sort of wipe the slate clean. And we had that in the 80s with the video game crash. Yes, we lost, as they say, 10 years of, 5-10 years of video game innovation. But you know what? To wipe the slate clean and to bring MMOs to a place where they can innovate, truly innovate, without being WoW clones, without being clones of insert game here, action game clones, or whatever clones they want to be. I want to see the slate wiped clean. I want to see the financials. I want to see everything laid bare. That being said, that's probably not coming for a while. So I would just like to see game makers stay more faithful to their product and to their customers and not lean to an extreme. That would be my idea.
Personally, I think I totally agree with what you guys both said. My personal final thoughts are I want MMO makers to go outside of the realm of role-playing games. Like, they don't necessarily need to be role-playing games. Like, the death of sci-fi MMO is going away. We've never seen a rise of a true tactical, MMO out there. I know it can be done. And, a lot of people used to look at Battlefield as a sort of MMO at the time, because that was like one of the first big 64 by 64, sided, matches. Why has Battlefield stopped there? Why haven't they tried to go bigger and badder and, more badass with make it huge, make it a gigantic battle and not just a direct competitor with, say, Call of Duty. So I mean, because let's be honest, that's what they basically have been doing. They've just been being a direct competitor to Call of Duty. Yeah, exactly. They've just been bouncing off of each other and been profiting off of each other the whole time. But I think there's space out there for a good, true, MMO shooter, where it's two conflicting sides, and I don't think we quite have that yet. So that's that. Guys, thanks for hopping on. If you click on Lorne's head, you'll be able to. I think I'll be able to get you to go over to his channel now that YouTube lets us link out of things. Now they do let us link out of YouTube. And be sure to subscribe to eldergeek.com. We are here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch TV. We also have a website that we sometimes look at. There's all kinds of stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Our Facebook,
Thank you.
our Instagram.
Yeah, there might be an Instagram out there. Hey, we actually just, well, there's a whole other story, but we even got like there's another streaming service out there. Blip? Hitbox. We actually just started up a Hitbox channel as well, so hopefully we'll be doing some streaming on that as well. But thanks, everybody. Take care.